Cool. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. My name is Wesley. This is Wu Can Cook. Welcome back to Wu Can Cook. Today we're doing a fried rice that I've been eating since I was a little kid. It's a fried rice that my dad used to make, or it's like loosely inspired by the fried rice that my dad used to make when he would make fried rice out of leftover breakfast, which is essentially eggs and sausage. And what we're going to do today is we're going to use some sausage that comes from Chinese food. It's called a lapchang. It's also like more commonly known as a Chinese sausage, and is probably most iconically known for being a pork sausage that's seasoned with a little bit of Sichuan peppercorn and has a couple of different things in it. It is also not always pork, but the one that I've always eaten is usually pork. A lapchang can contain a lot of different kinds of meat. I've seen it with pork. I've also seen it with chicken. I've also seen, I know that it is pretty common, at least probably more common in mainland China, to have organ meat in it. So you very often will see things like liver or other kinds of organ meat inside of a lapchang. The ones that I've always eaten, they're usually pork. So that's what we're going. Actually, I think we're going to be using pork and chicken today. So that's going to be like the main basis for our fried rice today. Otherwise, it is a pretty adaptable fried rice. So actually, a couple of people have asked me about it, and it is a relatively adaptable fried rice. And it's I feel like if we're trying to follow along with a recipe, probably the most coherent thing that you should take away from it is that almost everything that we're using today can be substituted. So that's kind of like the general ethos of how a fried rice works. Is use whatever you happen to have, because fried rice is intended to be a leftover dish. So today we're using Chinese sausage, but if you don't have Chinese sausage or you can't get your hands on Chinese sausage, use something else. You could use a chorizo, you could use Portuguese sausage would be really good, you could use any kind of Italian sausage, all of those things would be great. If it goes good in rice, it'll probably go good in a fried rice. So if you have any questions for me, feel free and drop those questions in the chat. I don't know everything about fried rice, but I do know lots of stuff, so hopefully I can be helpful or informative, or at the very least fun to watch. As always, as with pretty much everything that I cook on stream, there's also a recipe that goes along with this fried rice. That always lives over on my YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/WuCanCook. That's the channel if you're watching on Reddit. That's at the bottom of the screen. If you're watching on YouTube, it's the channel you're already on. That recipe came out last Friday. Came out Friday last week, and is up on the channel right now. And it is loosely inspired by leftover breakfast. So that's what we're taking a shot at today. Yeah, cool. So as with pretty much everything that we cook on this channel now, I'm starting off. That's crushed. That was 4 cloves of crushed and minced garlic, followed by, this is going to be about a tablespoon or about 1 inch's worth of ginger that we are going to do a fine mince on. So you generally will notice that I very frequently I'll skip the mince on the garlic. Because I find that it's not super necessary. You don't really actually need to mince garlic, because once it gets into the wok fry, it's pretty much just going to start falling apart from there. So you could give it as long as you give it a really good crush, it's going to start releasing that allicin, which is where all of the flavor and like umami lives in our garlic. And then from there, as long as you give it a rough chop, it's going to be good to go. So you can kind of skip the mince process. When we're working with ginger, however, because it is a little bit more of a durable veggie, we do need to be more specific about making sure that we get that fine mince in. Otherwise, you will have large chunks of ginger in your stir fry, which is not fun. The skinning, so what I'm doing right now, I'm skinning this ginger, so I'm removing all of the exterior skin. The main reason that I'm doing that today, actually, the main reason that I do it any day is because I don't feel like washing the ginger. But the other main reason why I like skinning the ginger is particularly when it's old, because the skin of ginger, it can get pretty rough and a little bit chewy in a wok fry when it gets old. So when it's like passes like maybe half a week or so, when you're not dealing with fresh, super fresh ginger anymore, it starts sort of drying out and it's a little bit less edible. When you're dealing with ginger that's super fresh, you'll know if it's super fresh because it will be like basically moist on the exterior. It'll still be pretty wet. You will definitely know when you're working with extremely fresh ginger. You definitely don't really need to pull that skin. You can totally just eat it. Brandina, how's it going? Yeah, What's up? Separate. Oh yeah, why do some fried rices look golden brown and why do others look saturated in soy sauce? Yeah, it kind of just depends on what kind of fried rice you're eating, who made it and how it was really prepared. So my personal gripe with fried rices, and this is more of a gripe with the dish itself, is that oftentimes it just doesn't really taste like much. It will have a lot of things in it, but it won't really taste like much. So when I was a kid, when I used to eat fried rice, I used to throw a bunch of soy sauce on it. I used to just a whole bunch of soy sauce on it, which is essentially what you're doing is just eating fried rice that has a little bit of extra protein, but it's basically just eating soy sauce. It kind of just tastes like soy sauce after a certain point. So with this fried rice and with like a lot of the other fried rices that I have done, there are I think there's 5 or 6 fried rices over on the YouTube channel now. What I usually do is I'll assemble a sauce base. So what we're going to do is we're using a pretty classic sauce base, but it's going to be a combination of, so there's a little bit of soy sauce, but also rice vinegar, sesame oil, there's going to be some hoisin sauce. And then I think the big 2 outstanding qualities is going to be a little bit of doubanjiang and a little bit of lao gan ma, or spicy chili crisp. And that's going to give it a lot of like color, so it's going to have this really deep red color because it's coming from that lao gan ma. And depending on what kind of fried rice you're eating or who made it, or like what goes into it, it might have that color. Sometimes like a really traditional and like really simple fried rice, it will literally just be like, I've had fried rices where it's literally just rice and eggs, nothing else, not even salt. It's just literally rice and eggs, which is super common, and it would just be basically just white with little bits of egg in it. So yeah, it all just kind of depends on like how it's made. Yeah, many different kinds of styles of fried rice, exactly. So, I know I've had a lot of crab fried rice that looks, crab fried rice is an extremely simple rice dish because it's meant to be highlighting that rice or the crab, because crab is really expensive, so you generally don't want to get in the way of that crab. And almost every crab fried rice I've ever had is pretty much just white. It's essentially just rice mixed with some crab. And I think what the general purpose of that, or at least how I kind of interpret it, is like the idea is that we're trying to stay out of the way of the crab, because crab is like a very delicate flavor, and if you douse crab in anything, like if you try to marinate crab, for example, kind of just ruins the crab, which is just a terrible thing to do because crab is really expensive. So yeah, kind of it depends on what you're eating. Cool. So next up, good question though, by the way. Next up, what I'm doing right now is I'm chopping up some green onions. These are 2 green onions that we're slicing up. But what you will notice is what I just did is I separated them. So we just finished chopping up, I would consider these the whites of our green onions because they are much whiter than the greens of our green onions, which are over here. And this is one thing that you probably will see me do. Not when we work with green onions, but a lot of the times that we work with green onions. And the main reason that we do that is because the greens of our green onions, they're a little bit more tender. So we don't want to throw these leafy greens into a wok fry because they will start wilting, which we don't want. So what we're going to do is we're going to set those whites aside. Those are actually going to get into our wok fry. So we're going to throw that in with our aromatics. But instead of throwing these greens in with them, what we're going to do is set these aside. And these are going to be our finishing garnish. So it's going to be, I like it because it adds a nice bit of color, especially with fried rice. It has a little bit of fresh pop. But also what it does is it kind of just like preserves the flavor of it. So lots of people think that the greens of the green onions don't actually taste like anything, which is not true. They definitely taste like something, but you just have to make sure that you treat them delicately. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set these aside, and these are going to be the last thing that we put onto our fried rice as our garnish. Yeah, 8 tricks to cooking fried rice. That's exactly what we're doing. I would barely, so there is a recipe for this, and it does live over on the YouTube channel. But I would barely consider that really a recipe, because fried rice, there's not really a recipe to a fried rice. It's essentially just throwing a bunch of stuff together. And I kind of came up with this one because it was sort of inspired by how my dad used to throw a fried rice together, which was just basically just using leftovers. So. Yeah. Sarah, oh, your mother always said eggs, bacon, and scallions. Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah. Oh, Herman, yo, you finally used your carbon steel wok. That's awesome. Yeah, I love a good carbon steel. I'm glad that you finally got one. Chicken fajitas. Yeah, that's a good thing to do. I think I'm gonna make a little bit later some. I think I'm gonna do some carnitas. I'm thinking about doing it in the wok. I was thinking about doing it in the barbecue today, but the barbecue, there's no propane left, so I don't think we can do it in the barbecue. Yeah, that sounds good though. Chicken fajitas. Oh yeah, what are we cooking? Yeah, hello to everyone just tuning in. My name is Wesley. This is Wu Can Cook. If you're just tuning in, we're doing a fried rice today that's loosely inspired by a leftover breakfast fried rice that my dad used to make when we were kids. And essentially what he was doing is we would like have a really simple breakfast, probably on like a Sunday or something. And he would do like scrambled eggs plus like some sausage and maybe some toast on the side. And the way that fried rice always came together is he would take the leftover eggs, so there would always be leftover scrambled eggs and some leftover sausage, some like random amount of both, generally because it's leftover from breakfast. And then he would throw it in with some leftover rice, and that was essentially how he would assemble the fried rice. And we would throw in some probably some frozen veggies, and that's essentially what we're doing today. The one thing that I have changed about this recipe is that we are going to use a little bit of sauce in it. So what I remember about that fried rice, while I do remember it being really, really tasty, is that it was a little bit bland. I remember that it was a little bit lacking in flavor. And when I was a kid, I do remember dumping a whole bunch of soy sauce into my dad's fried rice because I remember that it was always a little bit bland. So what we're going to do today, instead, to sort of like remedy that blandness, is we're going to add a little bit of a sauce base to it, sort of similar to how we would do a stir fry. We're going to do a sauce base to our fried rice today too. And that's going to be based with a couple of different things, but the things that really stand out to me today is that we're going to be using some doubanjiang and some spicy chili crisp, which is going to give it some nice, like, deep umami, I think. Yeah. Cool. Julienne it. Yeah, no. So, well, number one, I freaking hate julienne cuts. They're the worst. They take forever. So if I can ever avoid doing a julienne cut, I will generally do it. But generally, we don't want to do a julienne cut in a fried rice today because it would sort of just fall apart. The only real times that I do a julienne cut is if I'm trying to use it as a garnish, because the julienne cut is a really, really fine cut. So if you try and like cook a julienne, actually you can totally cook a julienne cut, but it would sort of just like crumble apart. So you would, if we were to julienne these carrots and then throw them in with the fried rice, the texture of that julienne cut would sort of just blend in with the texture of the rice, and then you would kind of lose it. So I did do a julienne cut recently. It was in a recipe for a gimbap, which is like a Korean sushi roll, I guess. And I did do a julienne cut for that. First of all, it took a really long time. It was really annoying. So I always avoid the julienne cut if I don't have to. And that was cooked. We did cook the julienne cut. But it's sort of like will have the texture of noodles. So unless you want like weird carrot noodles in your wok fry, sometimes you do, it's probably not going to work out. Oh, they were a family effort. Yeah, that's exactly what chicken fajitas should be. That should be what all meals should be, is family effort. All right, so that's our carrots. What we just did was a dice. The main reason that the main inspiration for why we're dicing those carrots really is because when actually most of the time, with most of the fried rice that I've ever had, you generally won't come across fresh carrots in a fried rice. Most of the time when you come across carrots, you'll probably see them frozen. And that's actually the majority of the veggies that we're going to be using today, other than the ones that we just chopped, are going to be frozen. So today, we're going to be using, so this is like probably, other than the rice, probably the single most important element to a fried rice are frozen veggies. So today we're going to be using these as some frozen corn and some frozen peas, and they by requirement have to be frozen. So, and I have tried to do many fried rices with like fresh corn and like canned peas. I've tried it with canned peas a few times. And it does, so the reason that it wouldn't work with fresh corn, so if we were to try and do it for like corn fresh off the cob, is because in the wok fry, corn is not going to withstand a wok fry because a wok fry is really aggressive heat. Corn is like a very, very delicate veggie, so it can't really do much in the wok. So the reason that we're keeping our corn, so I just put that corn back in the freezer until we're ready to use it. And essentially what we're about to do is we're going to throw that into our wok fry at the very, very end. So like literally right before we take it off heat. And then it's going to defrost like basically in the plate. It's essentially going to defrost in the plate. So what we're looking for is like a barely cooked piece of corn and a barely cooked piece of pea. And the reason that we're doing that is because if they're not partially frozen when they get into the wok fry, then we're going to end up with like really, really mushy corn and really, really mushy peas, which is not what we're after. Yeah. Oh yeah, I guess the reason that I brought that, I'll show the sausage packet. Yeah, so I totally should have done that. The reason that I brought that up is because most often when you see a fried rice, or at least most often when you eat a fried rice, you're probably eating frozen carrots too. I like doing it with fresh carrots. Mostly, and the main reason why I do that with fresh carrots is because I always have fresh carrots on hand, and I don't always have fresh frozen corn on hand. So this is a lapchang. It kind of looks like this. You don't have to get this brand. This is the one that I like because it's made from pork and chicken. So this camera keeps turning off. Yeah, this is the one that I like, mostly because it's made of pork and chicken. When you find it in the grocery store, you should kind of take a look. You can generally tell what it's made out of. It will generally have an English translation. If you're not sure, you can check these characters. This character means meat, so the character right before it is going to tell you what's in it. That will tell you either pork, chicken, it might also say liver, so you want to look out for the liver. Yeah. Lots of people want to see the sausage packet. Yeah. Cool. So this is our lapchang. What I just did was I chopped it on a very, very large bias. So this is like a very, very wide coin. You saw earlier when we were chopping the sausage, it is a pretty narrow sausage. So if we were to chop it straight, it would be like a pretty small coin, which is not great for a fried rice because it will kind of get just lost in the rice. So when we cut it on a really, really wide bias like this, it kind of has a little bit more length to it. And it will generally kind of stand out in the fry, and that's going to change the way that you bite. So that's really, really important. But a lot of what I always say is a lot of how a dish will come together will go all the way back to how you chopped things. So if you chop these differently, when you take a bite of a lapchang, if we were to say small dice it, for example. Kind of a weird example, but if we were to small dice this lapchang, it would sort of get lost in the wok fry, and then you would kind of have a very, very different experience when you eat it. So what we're looking for is for this lapchang to really stand out a little bit, because we're only using 2 of them. Yeah. Ooh, it was sour. It should not be sour. There's something wrong. It might have been bad. Lapchang sausage is smoked, so. It should be a pretty smoky, a very, very fragrant sausage, but it shouldn't be sour. It sounds like maybe it went bad. Is it chorizo? No, yeah, so that's what we were just talking about. So it's a Chinese sausage called lapchang. The one that we're eating today, it's made out of pork and chicken. But I've seen it with a lot of different things. I've seen it done with, I've definitely seen it with liver. You will commonly see it with just pork. I forget what else I've seen in it, but I think I've seen some beef lapchang. But yeah, it is a Chinese sausage, and it comes from, or the thing that probably stands out the most is that it has iconically seasoned with Szechuan peppercorn, so that will really stand out. Yeah. If I told my mom, yeah, if I told my dad that his fried rice is bland, he would smack me too. He has not heard that yet. Don't tell him I said that. But it is though. It absolutely is, and it's actually the same gripe that I have with a lot of fried rice. So every time that I have fried rice from places like Panda Express, or any time that you're getting fried rice as a side, and a lot of times I feel like when I get Panda Express, a lot of times what I'll end up doing is I'll get fried rice, and then I'll eat the General Tso's chicken with the fried rice, as it sort of just treating it as if it was steamed rice. which is like, that's not what fried rice is supposed to be. It's supposed to be a standalone dish. And the reason that you're doing that is because it's really bland. So it just doesn't really taste like anything. And that's just like my main big gripe with fried rice is that every fried rice I've ever had is kind of just super bland. Yeah, pre-fry the egg. Yeah, so that we are going to do that, we're going to do that. What I'm going to do is a little trick that comes from street wok cooking. So we're not going to pre-fry it, and I am going to show you how to get away with not pre-frying it. Kind of has to do with how we move things around in the wok. What's probably maybe the most important thing is that I just put a little bit of cornstarch in it. That was like half a teaspoon or so, very small amount of cornstarch for 2 eggs. And what that's going to do is just, a lot of people think that it makes it like creamier or something. It doesn't do that. What it's essentially doing is it's slowing down the cooking time of the exterior of the egg. So what it does is it kind of gives you maybe like an extra 30 to 45 seconds for the eggs to set, and that just gives you a little bit more time in the wok, which is really, really important in wok cooking because it's happening on such high heat. So imagine like if you were trying to scramble eggs on like with a wok or with a pan that's on like extremely high heat. What will probably happen is the eggs will be done cooking in like maybe 5 seconds. I've actually done this on a skillet before, and it will literally finish cooking in like 5 seconds. And then after that, it will start turning rubbery. So that's a real big problem because what will happen, that does happen in your wok fry. The interior of the egg is still going to be undercooked, so it's not going to set inside. And in order to get it set without that cornstarch, the exterior is probably going to turn rubbery, so that's not good. Then you kind of get these weird, like, chewy bits of egg, which is not good. So that cornstarch is just going to slow down that cooking time by, like, maybe 30 seconds, maybe a little bit less than that. And that's just going to give us just enough time so that we can let the eggs set without them turning rubbery. So. But yes, to answer your question, we aren't going to do any pre-cooking on the eggs, but I'm going to show you how to get away with not pre-cooking it. Although that is very, very important, is that when you cook fried rice, what we very intentionally want to do is kind of, I think of it like the opposite of how you would do like a pad thai, for example. We very intentionally want to make sure that the eggs don't combine with the rice. So the eggs need to set on their own before we start tossing them. And that's how you get like nice curds of egg. If you were to throw the rice in and then throw the eggs in on top, what you would end up with is like a rice that's coated in egg, which is not what we're after. It's still going to be super tasty because it's going to be an egg-coated rice, which is not bad. But that's not what we're after. We're trying to get those big curds of egg. Yeah. Cool. All right, so over on the stove, I'm heating up my wok here. I probably should have gotten that going a little earlier. We're gonna get that going. That will probably take about a minute to get heated up, and then we're gonna start cooking. Yeah. One day, yeah, just a cheap frying pan. Actually, this is a super cheap wok too. I think I got this wok for like 10, 12 bucks or something. Probably the most annoying part about a wok, or like, is not actually how expensive it is. It's about where you're gonna store it. So I remember I actually threw away not my first wok, but the last wok that I had. Which is, I've always regretted that because it was a cast iron wok. It's probably like $100. And I threw it out because I didn't have anywhere to store it. They're really large, they're really heavy, I don't know where to put it. So what I've started doing is I just store this in the oven, and then I just have to take it out anytime I bake something. Oh yeah, but the rice gets mushy, yeah. So, yeah, that's like definitely a big problem. It depends on like what kind of frying pan you're using. I would assume if you're saying it's cheap, it's probably not a skillet. So you're probably using something non-stick, and that has to do with like how hot the pan is able to get when it has that Teflon coating on it. So the real key is going to be about finding a skillet or some kind of frying pan that doesn't have that Teflon coating, and it will allow the pan to get a lot hotter. Bottom cupboard is best, yeah. Except unless you have other stuff that needs to go into your bottom cupboard, and then it's going to be super annoying because every time that you're trying to get to your mixing bowls, you got to move around the wok, which is really annoying. Yeah. Cool. Hello to everyone just tuning in. My name is Wesley. This is Woo Can Cook. If this is your first time catching one of these streams, we're here every Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday at 6 PST. We're on a little bit of a weird schedule today because I didn't stream yesterday because we were barbecuing. But if this is your first time catching one of these streams, we're usually here every Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, and then every Friday there's a new recipe that comes out over on the YouTube channel. Last Friday, the recipe that came out was the recipe that we're cooking through right now, which is a recipe for a lapchang fried rice, which is sort of inspired by how my dad used to do a leftover breakfast fried rice. And it's actually inspired by the scene from Lethal Weapon 4 that iconically is where the term fried rice you plick comes from. But if you're looking for that recipe, it always lives over on the YouTube channel. We kind of talk through things a little bit slower and kind of get through all of that, those real specific stuff. So if you haven't yet, definitely hop over to the YouTube channel and give it a check, or subscribe and check out what's going on over there. We were working our way to 4,000 subscribers by the end of the month, by the end of May. And it is so freaking close that I just didn't reset the counter because it's like really frustrating that I think we're like 20 subscribers short or something. And it is so obnoxiously close that I just refuse to reset the counter. But yeah, if you want to help us hit our, not really a goal anymore, but if you want to help us hit our subscriber goal by the end of May, please hop over and subscribe. We're working our way to 4,000. Cool. Yeah, is there onions in this dish? Yeah, there are green onions in this dish. There's no white onions. Onions would probably be okay. What I always say is if you're making fried rice, just use what you got. So if you have onions, throw in some onions. That'll probably work. What we're using today is in lieu of actual onions. So actually, we can take a look while that's heating up. In lieu of the onions, today we're going to be using green onions. So what I did is I separated and then chopped up the whites of my green onions, which look like this, really, really large. So those are going to stand out quite well in our wok fry, and like kind of just give it a little bit of a pop. So they're chopped really, really large. And in a lot of recipes, especially the Wukan cook recipes, you will see these three elements referred to as the aromatics of our wok fry. For the specific reason that we're looking for the aromatic elements from them. So we're going to toss these in first and then bloom out their aromatic qualities. Let's get into it. Yeah. Alright, so I'm adding, this is going to be about 4 tablespoons of peanut oil here. And then the first thing that we're going to do, actually the very first thing that you're going to do anytime that you're cooking in a wok is your long yao, which is essentially coating that wok in some oil. And that's going to create our non-stick surface. And then like I mentioned earlier, the first 2 things that we're adding is garlic and ginger. And actually in this case, the first 3 things will be the whites of our green onions. And then I'm going to give this a toss. I usually say about 10-15 seconds. But what I'm really looking for is I'm using my nose at this point. So I'm smelling, when we start smelling garlic and ginger, that's when we're ready to move on. Hey, there's Hamcharo. That's Hamcharo, everyone. Hamcharo is the hamster that eats ramen. He only gets to eat when you feed him, and he only gets fed when you subscribe. So please feed Hamcharo. He's very hungry. All right, next up, these are my carrots. So I'm giving my carrots a little bit of a head start here because I want them to be a little bit more tender. And carrots are extremely durable, so we need to give it a little bit of extra time to make sure that they sort of break down in that wok fry. All right, so I know someone was asking about eggs earlier. So the next thing that we're going to do is, so this is a process that comes from Chinese wok cooking on street food. And essentially what we're going to do is we're going to make use of the large spit surface area in your wok. And what we're going to do is we're going to push everything to one side. And you generally won't be able to do this with a standard skillet because you won't have enough surface area to do it in. So I'm pushing everything to one side. I am going to add a little bit more oil here. And then first things that we're going to do is add our lapchang first. And I'm going to give that maybe 30 seconds and really start blooming. That lapchang has a lot of like aromatic qualities to it. The sausage itself has a lot of fragrance to it. So I'm going to add that into the wok and let it sort of bloom out those aromatics, just like we did with the garlic and ginger. And our goal here is to really let that lapchang have some time in the wok without being combined first. So that's going because it's still hitting the hot oil on the bottom of the wok while the wok is essentially empty. That's going to give it some time to really bloom out some aromatic qualities. It's also going to make it a little bit easier to brown things. And then once they start becoming fragrant and have a little bit of color to it, then we can start combining them. Yeah. Carpe diem, how's it going? Yeah, good evening. Alright, so next up are our eggs, and this is the real trick to why we are not going to pre-cook our eggs here. Mostly just out of the artifact of I don't really feel like getting the second pan out. But again, also coming from street cooking, we're going to do the exact same thing. I'm pushing everything to one side. There is a little bit of oil that's coming around here, so that's good. And then we're going to add our eggs in. And our goal here is to make sure that those eggs are really set. So we want to give them plenty of time in the wok to set before we start combining. That's usually, for me, it's about like 10-20 seconds. But before we start tossing things together, we want to make sure that these things are set. So if we had added those eggs into the wok without creating space first, it would have gone right on top of our aromatics and our sausage. And what that would essentially have done, it would have created like an egg scramble, which is still going to be good. It would essentially be breakfast. But it's not going to create those big curds of egg like we have going right here. And this essentially, now we have scrambled egg. And then once we have big curds of egg setting, then we can go ahead and toss everything to combine. And you'll notice all of these big curds of egg, that's what we're after here. And then what we're going to do, so the last thing that we're going to do is I'm going to add my rice about a third at a time. So this is going to be the first third. Second bit. And really what we're doing here, so I guess the other thing that I should have mentioned is we're using, this is leftover rice, so it was made yesterday. Leftover rice is very, very important to fried rice. You really can't make fried rice with fresh rice because we need rice that has been pulled all of the moisture out of it. So there can't be moisture left in your rice. Otherwise you're on your way to a very, very mushy fried rice, which is not going to taste good. So what we're doing, since this rice is pretty stale, is I'm using the spatula and we're going to just sort of like break up those large clumps of rice. There you go. Alright, so at this point we could actually just stop right here and this would be essentially fried rice. You could stop. And this is what I would describe as a pretty bland fried rice. Not how I like my fried rice. So what we're going to do is we're going to add quite a bit of seasoning here. And I meant to do this off heat, but I think it will be okay because I've done this recipe many times. So starting off, that was 4 tablespoons of soy sauce going in. Next up is going to be 2 tablespoons of rice vinegar. And what I'm doing is I'm just adding each of these elements one at a time and then giving things a toss, combine. Next up is going to be 2 tablespoons of sesame oil. Followed by 2 tablespoons of hoisin sauce. Hoisin sauce is probably, like, I always think of it as like the ketchup of Chinese food because it's very, very sweet. And it's also like the sauce that you'll generally find in a lot of like Americanized Chinese food because it's so sweet. So the reason that we're including so much hoisin sauce today is because I was trying to like gravitate towards that like really, really Americanized style of fried rice. And it's going to bring us a little bit of sweetness and sugar. And then the last two things that we're going to add here, this is going to be a single tablespoon of doubanjiang, which is sort of like, I guess you could think of it as like Chinese hot sauce, or like Chinese chili paste. And then once again, I'm going to give that a toss to combine. And then the very last thing that we're adding here, this is going to be 2 tablespoons of lao gan ma. Yeah, 2 tablespoons of lao gan ma, which is I guess you could call it like chili crisp. And essentially what it is like red chili flake, or a chili flake that has been like fermented in like, I think fermented and then like really like flash cooked in oil, so a whole bunch of oil. And what it does is it creates this really, really pervasive heat because it is cooked in oil. Sort of has a quality about it that really just like lets it spread throughout a dish really well. It's also a little bit crispy because of all of those crisp chili crisps. The chili paste, yeah. The chili paste is called lao gan ma. Or I'm sorry, the chili paste that you're probably referring to is called doubanjiang, which comes from like the fermentation of red chilies. It has equivalents that come up in a lot of different Asian food cultures. So you will definitely, you could find it in Korean food. It's a similar chili paste called gochujang. I think that it has a very, very similar quality to the Japanese miso paste, which is also very, very similar. And I actually think it's probably most similar to sambal olek, which comes from, I believe it comes from Thai food. All right, last up, I'm adding, these are my frozen veggies here, so that's my corn and my peas. And when I say last, I mean I'm literally going to turn the fire off at this point. And then what we're essentially just going to do is toss everything to combine. And let those peas and corn defrost in the wok heat. There we go. So we're going to use the residual heat of our wok to just sort of defrost those peas. Yeah, and that should do it. Thought I would spill, but I didn't. All right. And then the last thing that we want to do every time that we finish cooking in our wok is that we want to rinse that wok down. So while the wok is hot, give it a nice rinse. And then while you have a hot wok, you also have a relatively non-stick surface. So that non-stick surface is going to be really useful because it makes it a lot easier to clean. So there was a couple of things stuck to my wok just now. It was mostly like egg, especially when we're using egg in a wok fry. That tends to stick to carbon steel a little bit. When you give it a rinse while it's hot, pretty much just all comes right off, so there's not really much left behind here. If you try and do that and try and clean it after you've eaten, so like give it 45 minutes or something and then pull it off, that's going to be a lot harder to clean because there's not going to be that non-stick surface anymore, which means that you're going to have to do things like scrubbing and like get steel wool out, all that stuff. None of those are things that we want to have to deal with. So save yourself some trouble and clean your wok while it's hot. Cool. So I'm finishing this all off with the greens of my green onions. And that should do it. What brand of wok do I recommend? Yeah, lots of people ask about this wok. So the wok that I'm cooking on is I don't think it actually has a brand. I got it from a restaurant supply store. So it's the wok itself is literally just a giant piece of carbon steel that's been shaped into a wok shape. So there's no branding on it whatsoever. There's one hole in it for where you hang it up. And other than that, it has no other distinguishing marks, which I thought was really funny. But if you happen to live in the Oakland area, so if you live in Oakland, Chinatown, or somewhere nearby, I got it from Cheong on 7 and Broadway, which is a really great place for a lot of like just general Asian cookware. Mostly, actually, it's mostly Chinese cookware. But generally, in general, if you're looking for Asian cookware, that's a good place to start. If you don't happen to live in Oakland, Chinatown, you will generally find a very, very similar store in most Chinatown districts, because those are the stores that are supplying goods to the restaurants in the area. So if you see a high aggregation of Chinese restaurants, somewhere in the neighborhood, there's probably also going to be some kind of Chinese restaurant supply store, like Chenko in Oakland. And then if you go there, you will generally find yourself a really, really good, really, really cheap wok like this one. I think I got this for like I think it was $12 with tax or something like that. Super, super cheap, real plain and simple. I think the handle itself was probably like almost as much. I had to like get a couple different handle holders because it literally does not even have like a real handle. It's literally just the piece of carbon steel that's molded into a handle. So if you don't happen to live near a Chinatown district either, I always say is the most important thing that I look for when I'm shopping for woks is the metal it's made out of. So this one, it's made out of carbon steel, which is a really, really great metal for wok cooking. Because it has a lot of heat potential, so it gets really, really hot really, really fast, especially if you have a really thin wok like this one. So I love carbon steel. You could also, also have good stainless steel wok, which has good heat potential. I always say is if you're cooking on an electric range, cast iron is a good option too, because it will have really, really good retention, so that kind of works around the fact that heat coils, or like induction tops and electric ranges, they don't get hot enough to really cook in a wok. But if you're cooking on a cast iron wok, it's not going to be that much of an issue because all of the heat retention is just coming from the wok itself, so it won't really matter. All of those good options. The only thing that I generally recommend avoiding are things like non-stick surfaces. So like Teflon non-stick is always a big no-no for me because I don't even know why they make Teflon woks because it doesn't make any sense. Teflon itself has a quality about it that prevents things from getting too hot. That's the same reason why Teflon pans are really good for scrambled eggs, because you can't overcook scrambled egg in a Teflon pan because the Teflon will literally prevent you from overheating your pan. For the same reason, that will never work for a wok fry because you will never be able to get that pan hot enough. Unfortunately, that's also like the main thing that you see in a lot of like big box stores. So if you try and get a wok at like Target or something, you generally will come across a lot of like Teflon non-stick, which is really dumb. Yeah, you can never cast iron's super expensive. I always say if you're like looking for affordable cast iron, hit some estate sales or like flea markets. I see a lot of affordable cast iron at like flea markets and estate sales. Because cast iron never breaks. Unless you like slam it against the pavement or something. Even then, you probably will still just break the pavement. Cast iron will never break. That's why when you come across a lot of like cast iron at like flea markets and stuff, you'll see like cast iron that was made in like the 1800s or some shit. It's because it has a lifespan of literally forever. The cast iron is freaking indestructible. I've heard of one person ever that has broken a cast iron pan, and I have no idea how you can break a cast iron pan. That's the same reason why like barbells and weight sets are made out of cast irons, because it's really, really heavy and you can throw it down and it won't break. So yeah, looking for like affordable stuff. Yeah, Lodge is like on the more affordable end. So yeah, like definitely more affordable than like Le Creuset or something. I always thought like Lodge, I think like I was looking at a Lodge wok, cast iron wok, and I think it would run you like $60-$70, something like that. Which I guess when you really think about it, that's still like pretty affordable. But definitely, like I would assume if you're looking for like super affordable cast iron, you're probably looking in like $10 to $20 range. And if you like hunt one down at like a flea market or something, I'm sure you can find one. I've seen plenty for like 10, 15 bucks. Yeah, cool. Thank you. Yeah, thanks everyone. Wow, this is like the fastest that we've done a dish in a while. Yeah, please do hop over to the YouTube and give it a subscribe. That's Hamcharo that just popped up. Hamcharo is the ramen eating hamster. He only gets to eat when people subscribe, so please feed him. He's very hungry. We're working toward 4,000 subs by the end of May, which is, we already blew past it. But I just didn't reset the timer because we're so freaking close, and it's really frustrating. But I think we're like 20 subscribers short, so if you want to help us hit our subscriber goal by the end of May, and then we can just, if we hit it today, then we can just pretend like we hit it. And yeah. Yeah, Brandita, you can definitely get yourself a carbon steel wok for less than $25. Just like, you gotta avoid like the name brand stuff. I know I've seen that will run you like $200 if you're like looking at really expensive stuff. I haven't used it, or I guess I have used it. I've heard a lot of good things about the Joyce Chen carbon steel wok, and I think it's like $30 on Amazon, so maybe even less than that with shipping. The Joyce Chen, so the one that I always have looked at is the Joyce Chen carbon steel flat bottom wok. And I think it's like 12 inches, something like that. It's pretty affordable. You can buy it on Amazon, so if you don't like live in a Chinatown area, that's a really easy one to get your hands on. It has a good wooden handle to it, so you don't have to worry about burning your hand, which I have done many times. So, wooden handle, very, very useful too. Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, totally. Cool. All right, thanks everyone for tuning in. My name is Wesley, this is Woo Can Cook. If you haven't checked out some of those recipes yet, please do hop over to the YouTube channel and check it out. Those are out every Friday, so last Friday was the recipe for this wok fried rice. The Friday before that was a recipe, we did katsudanburi, which is, I think it was katsudanburi? Yeah, I think it was katsudanburi, which is a Japanese fried chicken cutlet. Friday before that it was, I think we did gamjajoram, which is a Korean braised potato. Lots of fun stuff popping up over on that YouTube channel. Lately, we've been adding a lot to our TV and film hack series. So this particular one was inspired by a scene from Lethal Weapon 4. There's a bunch of other fun series going on. Probably the one that people watch a lot is the Chinese American hack series, where we've been sort of like taking apart a lot of Chinese American food and then reconstructing it without their American qualities. So kind of like taking a look at what would all of these Chinese American classics look like if they didn't come from America, which is really interesting with some stuff like General Tso's chicken, for example, because a lot of those things are, like General Tso's chicken is just American fried chicken. That's all it is, with like a sweet glaze. So some of that stuff really interesting to try and like reproduce in the context of like traditional Chinese wok cooking, because a lot of it doesn't really have a context for traditional wok cooking. So all of that lives over on the YouTube channel. Ooh, egg dumpling. Willie, yeah, Joyce Chen, that's the one. Yeah, the Joyce Chen wok. I haven't looked it up lately, but I know I've seen it on Amazon for like $30. And egg dumplings, I will definitely add that to my list. Dumplings of a number of things are on my list. We've done pot stickers and gyoza already, so we did some hand-rolled pot stickers, and then we also did some gyoza too. And then yeah, egg dumplings, and also xiaolongbao is on my list too. That and probably momo. So all of which are like kind of fall. They all of these dumplings are very, very similar. They're all basically come from like just different cultures, but they're essentially the same thing. So I'm probably gonna try and like group all of them together and do them all at the same time. So cool. Baking soda help clean the pans. Yeah, or a barkeeper's friend, also a good one for, especially for cast iron. Or barkeeper's friend is perfectly safe to use on cast iron. Usually, what I've always stood by is that like if you've seasoned those cast iron and carbon steel woks and pans properly, you shouldn't need baking soda. If you mess something up, you probably might need to get that baking soda out. So I have definitely messed stuff up in the wok before. So I've like been searing stuff and then like I burnt it, and then when you burn something for too long, it kind of just cakes on, and that's when you got to break out like barkeeper's friend or baking soda. But generally, if you don't mess it up, there should be a good enough non-stick surface where it should just come off. So you should be able to rinse most of it off. I haven't messed something up in a while, knock on wood, in long enough where I really haven't needed to like do any real deep scrubbing or cleaning. But yeah, if you do mess something up though, that's probably what you're looking at is some baking soda. Yeah. It tells you, yeah, someone, what material company is the wok from. Yeah, someone asked that earlier. I have no idea. I got it at, so if you live in Oakland, I got it at Cheong in Oakland. But I have no idea. It doesn't have a brand on it. It's literally just a raw piece of carbon steel. So you can, look. Doesn't say anything. It just, like, you could even see the handle is literally just, this is literally just a piece of raw cast iron or carbon steel. So it literally has no branding whatsoever. I'm pretty sure it's probably from like big box like supply store that just sends that stuff in bulk to Cheong. So. But if you live in Oakland, in the Oakland area, Cheong is a good place for the carbon steel woks. Cool. All right, thanks everyone. My name is Wesley, this is Wu Can Cook. We'll actually be back tomorrow. I know we normally don't stream on Wednesdays, but we missed Monday, so we're gonna be streaming tomorrow. And we're gonna be doing some pad thai. So I actually managed to find, I think I'll be able to buy it tomorrow, some fresh pad thai noodles. So we're gonna make some pad thai from fresh pad thai. So that's gonna be really fun. Tune in tomorrow, we'll be back at 6:30, cooking pad thai. All right, thanks everyone. Bye.
If you think that you don't know, never mind that you still don't love yourself. No, you can find it from somebody else. No, everybody's got to go up. Sometimes funny how we shoot the move. Still, will we fight it, baby? Alright, never mind. Yes, I found it now. Alright, I'm finally in love with love, and it's bringing me down. You want to be, baby, yes. You want to be, baby. Everybody wants to be I still got dreams, but they don't love me like they used to love it. And I'm reminded of how bad I used to want it. And yes, I still got dreams, but more like I took it of my 20s, and it's breaking me down. You want to be, baby, yes, you want to be. Want to be, baby. too far gone. Oh, it's Tennessee whiskey. You're real sweet as strawberry wine. You're as warm as a glass of brandy. Darling, I'll stay stoned on your lip all the time. I look for love all the same old places. Found the bottom of the barrel was always down. But you poured out your heart, and I didn't want to waste it. There's nothing like your love to give me you're as smooth as Tennessee whiskey. You're as sweet as strawberry wine. Ooh, yeah. You're as warm as a glass of brandy. Darling, I'll stay stoned on your love all the time. You're as smooth as Tennessee whiskey. You're as sweet as strawberry wine. You're as warm as a glass of brandy. Darling, I'll stay stoned on your love all the time.
Keep my hands on myself. Think I'll dust them off, put them back up on the shelf. Case my little baby girl is in need. Am I coming out of that